We all knew what the Orlando Magic wanted, what the Orlando Magic needed, and on draft night, the Orlando Magic delivered. Jase Richardson today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is June 26, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season, back when Jase Richardson was actually playing for the team. I think he was still on the team at that point. We'll get to all that. This is last year at the team, actually. We'll get to the Orlando Magic's big selection of Jase Richardson's son, with the 25th pick in the NBA draft, what he brings to the Magic, why he is about to prove a lot of doubters wrong, and everything else happened related to the Magic on the first round of the NBA draft. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, every day. We truly appreciate you, especially if you're part of our everyday crew that listens to Locked On Magic 5 days a week. Truly appreciate it. There is a Locked On podcast for every single NBA team. So if there's anything you're interested in from the NBA draft, check it out. The Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. When we entered this draft, we thought the Orlando Magic needed one thing. It's been the obsession for the Magic for the last 10 years. The thing they haven't been able to find. And it seems like every time the draft comes around, this need gets, I don't want to say forgotten because that isn't quite the right word, but it always seems to get pushed to the side, always seems to get siphoned off or sent somewhere else, always seems to be on the back burner, something that we're not even really thinking about. Shooting matters. And for a team that was last in the league in three-point field goal percentage last year, the biggest thing holding this team from being a championship contender was shooting. Undoubtedly, it was the focus. It was something I mentioned with every single draft prospect. Like, this guy can't shoot. This guy, like Jaeger Demon, he has all the skills, all the tools the Magic like. He can't shoot. Nolan Traore, great point guard, best passer in this draft. He can't shoot. So the Magic this summer set about finding their shooters, finding the guys who are going to make this team better, who's going to help fix this offensive problem once and for all. They acquired Desmond Bane, a player none of us thought was even going to be available to boost their shooting without taking away from their defense. And with the 25th pick in this year's NBA draft, with the 25th pick, a hope and a dream perhaps, the Orlando Magic added one of the best shooters in this draft. A player who may not check every box for Orlando, but checks the important ones. The Orlando Magic drafted Michigan State guard Jase Richardson. Jase Richardson's numbers, in a lot of ways, really speak for themselves. 12.1 points per game isn't astounding. He had about a 20% usage rate, so he wasn't necessarily the star at Michigan State. But when he had the ball in his hands, when he was making those decisions, when he was scoring, he did it with deadly efficiency. 49.3% shooting from the floor, 41.2% from three. One of the most efficient scorers at the rim, a low turnover player, averaging less than one turnover per game. Jase Richardson checks a lot of the boxes for the Orlando Magic. He does a lot of the things this team needs, and as has been the case for seemingly every single draft expert, draft profile, draft guru, the Magic aced their pick with Jase Richardson. But you don't need to hear it from me. I'm pretty excited. I did a whole episode on Jase Richardson and Walter Clayton earlier this week. Jase was very much on the radar. He worked out for the Magic. They thought they could get him at 16. So you need to take it from me. Let's hear from our friends at Locked On Spartans a little bit more about Jase Richardson.
You know what they say, great things come in small packages. That is certainly the case with Jase Richardson. What's up, everyone? Matt Sheehan of Locked On Spartans. And yes, Jase Richardson played his college career, his all 1 year, at 6'3" on a college roster. Well, unfortunately, at the combine, measured just a tick over 6 feet tall, and that could be a limitation for him. On the defensive side of the ball, yes, he was a plus defender in college, but could that lack of size make an impact on the defensive side of the court in the NBA? Does he have any other flaws? Like, yeah, sure, he favors going left more than he likes going right, but guys, overall, this is a dynamic player on the offensive side of the court here. I'm not going to say that he single-handedly dragged Michigan State to a Big Ten title, but there is no Big Ten title without Jase Richardson and what he did on the offensive side of the court, finishing at the rim at a 69% clip, and then from three-point land, goodness gracious, 41%. He has great vision, an outstanding passer. Guys, I know that, hey, he might slide to the back half of the lottery or even outside the lottery, but all things considered, he is a plus player for whatever NBA franchise is about to get him.
All right, thanks to Matt Sheehan from Locked On Spartans. We'll hear more from him in a few days, if not tomorrow. But this is who Jase Richardson is. A player who's just smart and does the right things. Those are things the Magic like. So yes, he measured at 6'1" at the NBA draft combine, much shorter than the 6'3" with shoes that he was listed as in college. And that lack of size was concerning. That lack of size is concerning entering the NBA. It's one of the reasons why I had Walter Clayton a little bit higher on my board. It's one of the reasons why Jase Richardson ultimately dropped in this draft. This is a guy who the Magic, who Jeff Weltman said they believe would be available at 16 and weren't sure after they made the Desmond Bane trade was going to be there, was going to be someone that they could look at 25 as they began reassessing what they could accomplish in this draft. But the Magic got their guy. Everyone always feels like they got their guy on draft night. But the Magic really do feel like they got someone who checks all of their boxes because he is an elite finisher at the rim. He is an elite shooter. He is someone that fits in with an offense and can create a little bit on his own, can get to the rim, can finish at the rim, can finish from three, can finish in the mid-range. If not for his size, this is a clear lottery pick. And a clear win for the Magic because, as everyone likes to point out, you don't play for Tom Izzo if you do not defend. And for the Magic, he's going to fit in. Playing alongside Anthony Black or Jalen Suggs or Desmond Bane, he'll have another big defender to cover a little bit for him, but he's going to fit right into this rotation. I said throughout the course of this offseason, I really think the Magic need to get three things: a starting level guard, an upgrade for Cole Anthony, an upgrade for Gary Harris. One way or another, Jase Richardson is going to could potentially and could very likely fill one of those two roles. And to get that kind of value and that kind of talent at 25 is a huge win for the Magic. This is a night where the Magic got a really, really solid player. A player with very few question marks. But those question marks still exist. There is always a reason a player falls in the draft. There is always a reason a player slips. A player doesn't quite live up to expectations. And that's the thing the Magic have to figure out next. That's the thing the Magic have to figure out. That's the thing Jase Richardson has to figure out. But if there's one thing that's clear, it's that Jase can put those doubts to the side. He is a player who's constantly done that. I want to get to that point coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. There is nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. If you are wanting to update your patio this season, Wayfair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours. Comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space. Conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and yeah, even the perfect string lights to set the vibe for your summer outing. It's like giving your backyard that resort feel without the resort price tag. Whatever you want to redesign in your home, you can pick a new outdoor dining set or modern lounge chairs. They can help you completely transform your patio or transform any room in your house. The delivery is fast, free, and totally hassle-free. even with larger items. So when you're hosting friends or just unwinding with a book, it feels like your private retreat. Don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. We can't pretend this is a complete home run. Because, I mean, it is. This is a really good pick. Everybody seems to agree. Jase Richardson checks off a lot of boxes the Magic need. The Magic need more players who can create their own shot. The Magic need more guys who can put tension in the defense. The Magic need more players who can hit threes. Jase Richardson is elite at all of these things. They need players who can play secondary roles just as easily as they play primary roles. Jase Richardson does this. But let's not pretend we don't understand the situation. Let's not pretend that we don't understand Jase Richardson was the 25th pick in the draft. And yeah, you want to hit every draft pick you get. But at 25, your odds of getting the guy that makes sense and works for you, it decreases pretty dramatically. I'm a Northwestern fan. I always joke with people, when a player comes to Northwestern or a good player comes to Northwestern, you got to kind of ask yourself why. Why is this guy here and not at the big school? What flaw is there? And figure out that flaw and figure out how to cover for it. It's our defeatist way at Northwestern, fellow Big Ten school. All my Big Ten friends understand. So why is Jase Richardson the 25th pick? Why did a player that the Magic felt like they could have gotten at 16 and may have very well taken at 16 if they still had that pick, certainly not who Portland ended up taking at 16. Certainly. Why did Jase Richardson fall in this draft? And to me, like, this is the story. This is going to be the story of Jase Richardson's career. Because the reasons he fell were likely things he could not control. He cannot control that he measured at 6 feet and a quarter without shoes at the combine and started scaring off some teams because of that. He can't control his height. As Jeff Weltman pointed out when he mentioned that, yeah, he's a little small, but he has a 6'6" wingspan, has that plus wingspan. The concern is very, very clear. Jase Richardson is in the size of a point guard, but at least as of yet has not shown point guard skills and is small, which is easy to attack, especially in a switch-heavy scheme like the Magic like to run. These are legitimate questions to ask. This isn't to bang on the kid. This isn't to knock the kid. It's a legitimate question that has to be asked. And whether he has a successful career or not might depend on how he answers these questions. The good news then is that Jase Richardson grades out pretty well. Even for a player as small as him, he had a plus 11.6 box plus minus. He had one of the best and highest plus minuses in the nation. The Spartans won when he was on the floor. And at least in college, he was far from a negative on defense. The Spartans posted a 100.3 defensive rating according to Sports Reference with him on the floor, and he led Michigan State with a 5.1 defensive box plus minus. However much you want to value those stats, however much those stats might mean, and again, we'll see how they translate to the NBA. Ultimately, we don't know what translates to the NBA. The draft is educated guessing. Nobody knows how these kids will react to an 82-game schedule. Nobody. But at least all these numbers suggest Jase Richardson doesn't give up on defense because he's small. He fights. He plays hard. And in a defensive culture like Orlando's, all you need to do is give an effort. If you put the effort in, if you make it just a little bit more difficult to get by you, the rest of the team's going to cover for you. It's going to be the same thing with the other part of the coin. Jase Richardson is a shooting guard in a point guard's body. He was not a heavy passer, only averaged about an assist per game, about 0.8 turnovers per game. Very low turnover rate for a player who had the ball in his hands a lot, but not passing the ball a ton either, not creating. Now, Jase will tell you that Michigan State was really the first time in his career he played without the ball in his hands. He's going to play plenty without the ball in his hands in Orlando, and very clearly he showed that he can adapt to that role and be successful. He found a way to impact games. And again, the plus-minus stats, the box plus-minus stats, all these advanced metrics, the shooting efficiency, all of them suggest that he can perform in that role. But what the Magic need is not just scoring off the dribble. They need playmaking. They need people who can create off the dribble. The Magic may not have a traditional point guard, and Jase Richardson is certainly not a traditional point guard. The Magic may not have a traditional point guard, but they're trying to create one among several players. Between Paolo, Franz, Desmond Bane, Jalen Suggs, Orlando hopes to create enough passing and playmaking that it'll feel like they have a point guard. And between Anthony Black and Jase Richardson, the Magic are going to rely on them for their multifaceted offense as well. Now, by all accounts, Jase Richardson is very confident that he will be able to adjust to this role. He is very confident that he does have point guard skills, and his role at Michigan State just simply did not call for him to bring that up. Perhaps that is something we will see in Summer League. Perhaps that is something we will see develop over the course of the next season, next few seasons. But this is all part of the question, the ultimate question. Why did Jase Richardson fall to 25? Why was he there for the Magic to excitingly scoop up? Again, this is constructive criticism. This is the question he has to answer. This is the question the Magic have to answer if they're going to get a successful draft pick out of him. And clearly, they feel comfortable asking those questions. They feel comfortable with what those questions could mean. And this is the ultimate statement. Jase Richardson has to prove them all wrong. Jase Richardson has to prove those 24 teams that passed on him that they were wrong, or whatever many, like let's say 16. So let's say those 8-9 teams that didn't take him in his draft range. He has to go out there and prove them wrong and prove to us the player he really is, specifically within the context of the Magic. Orlando's set up right now where they're going to give him that opportunity. He will have the chance to earn it. They don't have another backup guard. They have Anthony Black. That's it. They have Jet Howard. They have a few players that, are fighting for those minutes, but the pathway, very rare for a team of the Magic's caliber. Right now, that pathway is wide open for Jase Richardson to not only take minutes, but to thrive in them. And it's on him to make that statement. It's on him to make the Magic play him. Because he has skills they need. He has talent that they need. He has abilities that should be very successful in Orlando. Now he has to go out and take it. It was a busy night in the NBA draft, and the Orlando Magic's picks were involved in a lot. We're going to go into the twilight zone a little bit and think about what could have been coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Skims. When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. We've all seen the ads. NBA is obviously a partner with them. We've seen all those ads, and those underwear, they look very comfortable. The quality set looks really, really good. I'm not always one to be swayed by celebrity endorsements, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looked pretty cool in those boxer briefs. So I had to give it a try. Let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with underwear. We all do. We're always looking for the right pair, the right fit. Our bodies change sometimes. We need underwear that moves with us. And sometimes you just graduate to briefs. That happened to me. Skims changes everything. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. I've tried Skims. They were the first boxer briefs that I ever had. I was a little bit afraid of them. Was not sure they were right for me. And oh boy, was I wrong. I know this is a weird thing to say on a podcast. I think I'm a briefs person now. I think I've graduated from boxers back over to briefs. And briefs over the first time. They move with me. They never lose their shape. They stay in place all day. I don't have to worry about anything. It honestly feels like you're not wearing anything at all, which is just a freeing feeling. Whether I'm working out or just running errands, they're the most comfortable and relaxing underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select Locked On Magic. That's our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Check it out at skims.com. Before we dive into the Twilight Zone, let me say this. I think the Orlando Magic are really happy with how this draft worked out. Just judging by what fans have said, I'm recording this at about very, very late. I'm not going to say what time. You can check the time stamp on the audio podcast because this is going up at 6 a.m. on YouTube. Sorry, you're going to have to wait a little bit. Judging by in the hours after the draft happened, just listening to Magic fans in the circles that I listen to, the responses that I get onto my articles and everything else and my mentions, Magic fans are really, really excited about this pick. This is a guy that maybe wasn't number one on everybody's board, but he was top 3, top 4, top 5. He was in the list of players that I think a lot of Magic fans looked at and said, that's a guy that I really like. If the Magic took him, I would be pretty happy with how this draft turned out. And so ultimately, I think that's where we're at. I think that the Magic as an organization are really happy that a player of Jase Richardson's talent and caliber fell to them at 25. I think they feel like they got a good value out of their pick. And fans, I think, are really, really excited about the potential that Jase Richardson brings. Now, again, translating that to the NBA is a completely different animal. We will see what he looks like in Summer League here in a couple weeks, so we'll get a little bit more of a feel of how he plays and what he can bring to this team. You don't know how anything translates to the NBA. And again, Summer League is less about how he does. It's about just showing that you belong. I always say this. I'll say this again when the Summer League roster comes out. Summer League, you don't figure out who can play. You figure out who can't play. So as long as he holds his own and looks okay, I think we'll be okay. And we'll see what happens when we get to October and the regular season. Certainly a benefit that Jase Richardson's father is an NBA player, former Magic player, Jason Richardson. Certainly helps that he has that experience behind him. It's going to be really cool to see Jason back in Orlando. I love his time in Orlando wasn't the absolute best, but he gave it his all for Orlando. He's part of the Dwight Howard trade. I always respected Jason Richardson tremendously. Magic could use a player like Jason Richardson right about now. He won the Magic a few games just purely on his three-point shooting. Jase play much smaller version, plays very similarly to his father. But there's a lot of moving and shaking, and frankly, a lot of moving and shaking with the Magic's picks. And I think that is something worth pondering a little bit of the what if. The Memphis Grizzlies ended up trading the 16th pick along with the Magic's 2028 first round pick that they acquired in the Desmond Bane trade for the 13th pick and Cedric Coward. We did an episode on this a couple weeks back. Cedric Coward was one of my big trade up targets. Long armed, like traditional wing that the Magic like, excellent 3-point shooter, at least statistically, really had a strong combine and cemented his place in this draft as a lottery pick. He was not a lottery pick even a month ago, or like a month and a half ago, 6 weeks ago. He was not a lottery pick. He was one of the big risers in this draft. And again, like checks so many boxes that we know the Magic like. The fact that it took 2 picks that Orlando owned, that Orlando gave to Memphis to get him, it stung a little bit. I won't lie, but honestly, that sting went away quickly because Desmond Bane's a much better player. Orlando certainly does not regret trading those picks for Desmond Bane. They don't regret any of that. They made their all-in move. They made a push to be all in. And as good as Cedric Coward is, he is not Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane is one of the absolute best shooters in this league. Orlando needed that. They needed playmaking. They needed someone who's not going to be take away too much defensively. The Magic got their guys. So I don't think they were worried about trading their picks, but it did seem interesting that it took 2 Orlando picks to trade up to get a player that we know the Magic would have liked. Adding to that, then, I got to get apoplectic. I got to get just dumbfounded and shocked once again with the 16th pick. The Portland Trail Blazers, via the Memphis Grizzlies, selected Chinese center Hansen Yong. Now, this pick was so shocking. I literally shouted. Jason Beatty was sitting behind me. He was kind of following Twitter and getting finding reporters who were tipping picks. And he said, Portland's drafting Hansen Yong. And I turned around and I must have said like 4 or 5 times right in a row, they're drafting Hansen Yong? And then it became a recurring joke throughout the evening. Look, Hansen Yong was on the Magic's radar. He worked out for the Magic, as did Jase Richardson, by the way. So again, Magic actually drafted someone they worked out. They worked out Tristan DeSilva last year as well. They worked out Hansen Yong. There was some reporting suggesting the Magic were really into him. 7'2" center, like 250 pounds, like big dude. You watch his Chinese Basketball Association highlights. He blocks a lot of shots. He's a good scorer. They don't really play defense in that league. It's not really much to look at. But 20 years old, I was a little older. I'm surprised he's that old. He's an interesting and solid player. He's definitely I'm taking a deep cut and swinging for the fences. If the Magic had both of their picks and they took a Cedric Coward or they took a safe pick at 16 and then turned around and took Hansen Yong at 25, I would understand that. I think the Magic were probably looking at Yong as a potential second-round pick, maybe someone they would trade up into the early second round to get. There is perhaps some thoughts, and there was some unsubstantiated reports about how interested the Magic were in Yong. There's definitely some thinking that they might take him at 25, that there's some team that was higher on him to take him out of the second round and ensure that they got him. But man, taking that guy, such a big risk at 16, especially Portland, who already has Donovan Clingan, another young center. It looks like they're trying to trade DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams. So, the center rotation's a little bit jumbled. There's not a lot of room for Hansen Yong to begin with. It was just downright shocking. And the fact that was the Magic's pick, that was Orlando's spot that was used on this player. It was dumbfounding. It was the shock of the night. It was not a shock, like among the shocks of the night was Hansen Yong going at 16. It was, frankly, Jase Richardson falling to 25 was a pretty big shock. I think everyone had him either in the early 20s or in the teens, if not the lottery. Jaeger Demon going 8. There were, for as much jumbled as this draft felt like, Brooklyn keeping all 5 picks was a pretty big shock. For as jumbled as this draft really felt like, it really wasn't too unpredictable. Like on my mock draft, I got the first 9 picks right, and I was sketchy about some of them. I don't have much inside information, but this draft went a little bit according to plan. It wasn't as chaotic as I think we thought it was. There's a lot of picks being swapped and moved around, but it wasn't as chaotic as we thought. But again, through the chaos, some things did happen, and ultimately the Magic ended up with the guy that they wanted, and the Magic ended up with a really solid player in Jase Richardson. There are some questions, there are some things to be worried about, but I think ultimately the Magic feel like they won Wednesday night. They should feel very, very good about who they have moving forward. But that's going to do it for the first night of the NBA draft. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. A lot of content up during the draft over there. You can also follow us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. For the latest on the for even more information on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. I'm finishing recording this. Then I'm going to write something new for the Patreon for the morning. I have another story on that. Another story on the Magic, on the draft, on Jase Richardson, as well on the Patreon tomorrow. So double Patreon day. I'm trying to say one post a day there, but please subscribe. Please help me out, and I truly appreciate all of the support. That's going to do it for me today, though. now that we're done talking about that, and now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, go make Locked On NBA your second listen of the day, because there's no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode, we will talk who the Magic take with the second round, if they take anybody at all. We will talk beginning of free agency. Where do the Magic go next? And we will talk about the big leadership changes that the Orlando Magic announced on Wednesday. We're going to skip over that today. We will get to that tomorrow, why it's ultimately a good thing that the Magic are restructuring a little bit and re-solidifying their place in Orlando. We're going to get to all that tomorrow. Still plenty to get to. If we don't get to that tomorrow, we'll get to it Monday, because eventually we'll talk to our friends at Locked On Spartans. But until all of that, we will see you all again for another episode of Locked On Magic.